Welcome everybody to our expert guest session today. We are back, and for all of you listening and tuning in to the Fierce Factor podcast, I have an amazing guest, actually a second-time guest on the podcast. Our first interview was probably 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and look, maybe 3 years ago, and I had the one and only Heidi Hermel on to talk to us about, at that time, the value of transitioning from out of an insurance-based medical system to a cash pay model, which I can't even believe we were talking about that back then, but that was like a thing where people were like, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave like normal healthcare and actually move into the space where I'm asking people to pay with their own dollars for medicine. And I feel like that is becoming the common like way of interacting like with healthcare today, which is so amazing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I am here today to interview Heidi to talk about her extensive growth and just, I think, inspiring and I think awe-inspiring and enviable, like acceleration of her business over the past 4 years. So when we worked together, Heidi was a solopreneur, maybe had one employee, I think, and I tell the joke, so I'll just kind of start it here. It's not a joke, it's actually the experience we had where when I started coaching with her, she was sitting answering one day the phones at the front desk, and I think had an employee that, like, the front desk, one employee left and stole the company car or something like that. It was some crazy story I couldn't believe. And she was like, oh, I'm answering phones and I'm managing the dashboard of my business here. And I'm coaching with you, I'm talking to you. And she was doing all the things, but still independently generating over $500,000 a year, somehow managing all of this. And I was like, this woman is incredible. How does she do it? Flash forward to today, Heidi is investing, not only has just, quadrupled her business, I don't even know how many 100% growth year over year, working toward an 8-figure model here, investing in real estate, building assets, and a legacy business that eventually I think maybe one of her children will hopefully take over. So super excited to interview Heidi. Heidi, before I let you talk, I want to just kind of share your bio with the group so I can tell a little bit about who you are, and then I'll have you jump in and we can start with your story. So today I have Heidi with us. She is a certified family nurse practitioner with over 13 years of experience in skin conditions and medical aesthetics. She is from the Mankato area, which is outside of Minneapolis, for those of you who don't know. And by the way, it's negative 20 degrees there today. So if that isn't resilience, I don't know what is. She received her master's in nursing from Minnesota State University, Mankato, and started her career as an OB nurse in Mankato. After becoming an NP, she worked in family medicine, has a special interest in women's health, which she'll share today, and really has been a pioneer in advancing health and wellness in her aesthetic practice. Passionate about health and wellness, and received advanced training in hormone therapy, medical weight loss, and thyroid management before it was cool, by the way, guys. Each time a patient comes in for a service or consultation, she'll take the time to learn what skincare goals are and will recommend treatments that will help her patients achieve those goals. She believes it is so much more than just talks and treating wrinkles. It's about feeling better about yourself. Rest assured, her focus will be on you, and her team's focus will be on you, because you're more than a client. You're a person who deserves individualized care. I love that. Have you seen that bio in a while?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay, so welcome, Heidi. I got a slew of questions. I got some feedback recently that my interview skills need some polishing and that I sound clunky trying to move through questioning. So I decided to come with no agenda today, except for let's just hear how Heidi freaking crushed it and is building her empire. So welcome, Heidi, to the Fierce Factor podcast and this Academy session.
Well, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's just start by telling us about your practice, what you do, and we'll take from there.
Okay. So 5 years ago, I started in just a little tiny office, 2 treatment rooms. I shared it with an advanced practice esthetician that I was also her medical director. And that's really how I transitioned into this, just by chance. And opened in January. So it's just been over 5 years, and 2 months to the date, then COVID hit. So we shut down for a few months. And then when I reopened, I was going to do cash-based medical and aesthetics. And aesthetics, as we all know, really took off. And so just each month, I think we opened back up in June. I think Minnesota was a little bit later. And it just kept growing. The esthetician that was in my space lasted only a few months. I saw very quickly what doesn't work as an entrepreneur. Just, you know, there was a lot of changes at that time. And instead of like blaming everybody else, like, you know, it sucked, COVID sucked. I'm like, okay, then we need to embrace what's happening and figure this out. So one day she just packed up and moved out, and it was a blessing in disguise, because I really believe when you're around like-minded people who are wanting to grow helps versus, you know, holding you back. And so she moved out, and then I needed the other room. And so slowly just started to grow. And, you know, let's see, that was so probably like 6 months later, I thought, this is crazy. I need to hire somebody. I cannot do everything. You know, I would check them in, check them out, schedule, and I was working just all the time. And so I hired my first staff. When I did my business plan, I said, the banker asked, and I said, I have no plans to ever have a team. You know, I will be happy to make $8,000 a month. Well, is what I figured I needed to keep my business, like, so I could have a business and pay my rent. And then I started, so I hired somebody. Then I needed to hire, you know, then at that point, I knew I needed a few more people. Still was the only provider. And, you know, that was my first experience of managing a team. So, you know, going through employees after a few months, but I learned very quickly, if this person does not align with me, they don't belong in my business. But unfortunately, I didn't learn quick enough. I did have an injector that started with me, and I remember talking with you, Kaylee, and my gut just didn't feel right. And I thought, this person just does not align with what I'm going for. But then I was like, well, maybe it's me. You know, I am being insecure. How am I going to ever bring on a nurse that trusts me, that she can have a full-time income? I can train her, you know, because she had no experience. And then I thought, no, I can do this. I can get her busy, and decided I'm going to just stick with it. But always, there was always something in me that was like, there's just something off. And actually I brought it up with her, but, you know, there's a difference in helping somebody grow that wants to grow versus tiptoeing around that employee. So I learned very quickly. And so after about a year, that person no longer, to their choice, decided not to come back, which was, I mean, again, I look at some of these milestones in my business, was such a blessing. And so before that, I had grown and moved into a new space. So 2 years in, I think I was up to 8 employees in a new, larger location. By the time we moved into our space, which was a build out, which took, again, way longer. I mean, this is during midst of COVID. So we were supposed to move in 6 months and 9 months and then a year. So I had 9 employees in a little 500 square foot. I mean, we were sitting on the Emsella chair. I mean, we had nowhere, we didn't even have enough seats. So, but really during that time I think I've been working with you for about a year and a half. And that's where I really realized, to really grow a business, number one, I need to make sure I'm hiring A players always. And if they aren't, they don't stay with the skin clinic. Policies, you know, how do we function day to day? Because I quickly learned too, I can't be here 5 days a week and still have a life and enjoy my teenage kids. And during that time, my husband also quit his job in corporate and started helping me, more so managing our house. I call him the household manager than really in the business, which was also life-changing, because I can be at work and do all the things and know everything is taken care of at home. But that really, it was just each year adding more, sometimes then rehiring. We're in the process right now of, again, expanding because we moved into a space and we're landlocked. I bought the building next door, but if we tear that down, there's parking issues. And so to really expand and create the long-term business and space I want, we will be starting in April so I never thought I would be in 5 years, 3 build outs, but here I am making decisions about lighting fixtures and paint color again.
Here she is back expanding. So I think like so many people are just in awe. First of all, let me mention this, like, you know, this rapid growth, like the thought of in 2 years, 8, 9 employees. And it's like, how do you sustain that business? That's one thing. And then the next question is like, how did you get that business? You know, as your market was growing and also being in Mankato, I think I hear people all the time that are like, I'm in the burbs, like no one's coming, like I don't have the market, but you've built that market and there's competition. So that's, you know, there's sort of the two sides of it. One is building the capacity to sustain that, but then what would you say has been the biggest driver of growth? How did you build that business and differentiate yourself in your marketplace?
Yeah, when I started, I never followed what everyone else was doing. I always thought, this is what I want my business to be. This is the type of client I want. I always picked like devices, products. I didn't pick what was trending. I picked what works best and what I believe in. It's really, and I think it's just because I never said, I'm going to do what the person down the street is doing or the person, that I follow on Instagram. But so our community is about 60,000 people. But I draw from, 90 miles away. I have people come from the Minneapolis area. And so when people say there's not enough people, there's people everywhere. You just have to draw in the right person, and they will, people drive where we live. 90 minutes away, I might be one of their closest options. And so, they'll come from South Dakota and Iowa. I think I've maybe had one person from Wisconsin. I can't remember, but so they do come from, 90, 60 miles. I would say a lot of my clients are not from my community, and we do have competition. I think right now, maybe we have 5 or 6 med spas. But again, I have learned very quickly, I don't pay attention to what they're doing and I stay in my own lane. When you have rapid growth like this, you become a target. It's really, really hard for people to see the success of a female. And I know that certain things have happened to me because I'm a female. And if it was a male, they would say, oh my gosh, look at that person growing that business and empowering all these women and hiring this amazing team. But no, it's always, and again, in the last 2 years, the first 2 years, that was really, really hard for me. I struggled mentally with that, with the growth. I had to learn, you know what, this is for me. I make my decisions every day that I think is best for my team, for my patients, for my family. And those people who will judge and hate will always be that way. Like yeah. If I change what I'm doing, will never change how they view me. And so why even try,
So Heidi, can you give some specific examples of hater situations that have happened?
Yeah, I've been targeted on social media. I've had an angry client the week before we were moving into our new space, because they're facial, which we're not even a facial place. We've never promoted facials. We're medical aesthetics. We don't even offer facials anymore. It wasn't to her liking. I wasn't there. I got 40 1-star Google reviews. Somebody from Arizona actually called me and said, I saw in this Facebook group, this person is going after your business and you need to know. And my husband still talks about that. That was like a very difficult time, because I was like, what was supposed to be a very happy time of like, wow, we're moving out. It's been a year. I built this beautiful space. my team finally is going to have chairs to sit in. And instead of embracing that, I had to deal with that. I've had providers in the community turn me into the board of nursing because, God forbid, somebody actually listen to the patient and not just do the standard of care, where I actually listen and will treat thyroid, which I'm very good at and have done extensive training on. Hormone therapy. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. And, so I've had to go through that. Thank God I've never even been investigated beyond just submitting everything I have done. But I mean, this keeps happening. I've talked to many people and they've never been investigated. And I have 3-4 times.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's one of those things too, like we face so much friction and resistance in growth internally anyway, right? Like the dragons we have to slay to be able to achieve that next level for ourselves. And then you get to that next level and all of a sudden it's like this exposure, like a spotlight is on you. And now all of a sudden you have people that are not cheering for you anymore. It was like,
right.
they'll be happy for you until you exceed their expectations of you. And then it's like now all of a sudden the mirror, is on them. And it's like, oh no, you can't infringe upon, this cushy little bubble that I have where, how I see myself as successful. And yeah, so that's I just think an important lesson to remember for like any female growing a business, that part of growth and leveling up is going to be resistance and not people not really liking you or supporting you, the other thing that I think you talked about, drawing in the right people. So how do you do that? Like how would it talk to me about that process? Like how do you actually get the right people to come?
Right. And that's been a process too to learn. If I could go back, I would have been very different from day one. But I think part of it too is learning what type of client do you want and being okay with making changes. And, we want people who are all in, that don't, I say we are not the Botox factory like the 5 other med spas. We offer very comprehensive. We're very, very, actually, I think Haley, we talked about this in our call. We're very, very light in filler. Filler is our least, I think for every year, that is our lowest revenue of any service we offer is filler, by a significant amount, because we really focus on skin first, energy-based devices, really comprehensive treatment plans, where when people come in, our goal is to have everybody have a year plan. And I think when we started doing that, that really transitioned our business. We don't do like a la carte. Like people can't call and be like, I want one VIPL. We're like, okay, well, you haven't been in for a year. So you need to come in. We need to reevaluate what's going on. What are you doing with your skin? Then we'll do the peel, but you need to speak with a provider first. We don't fire any lasers without skincare. We're a skincare heavy practice. We do, I mean, there's attrition because some people don't want that. They just want their Botox. And I think, when I got my braces, or my kids, we still go to the dentist. Like it's that mindset of what type of client do you want? Because I would much rather have, 10 amazing all-in clients than 20 that just aren't really, that kind of pick and choose, because those are always the unhappiest. I tell my team, would you be happy? Maybe they will not pick the all-in option, but would you be happy if you knew there were 3 options, but you were only told 1 and 2, but not 3? Maybe they would have chosen 3, or at least we planted the seed. So I think it's also helped with patient satisfaction. We don't overpromise.
Yeah.
We say, you need to do all this. Like there's no miracles. My favorite is, well, how long does this last? I'm like, well, nothing's forever, right? I mean, even a facelift, you have to maintain your skin. So really, I think it's with our marketing and just by setting that expectation, even before they come in, where they can't just book a facial or one VI peel. Because what I always think is, well, what are you trying to accomplish with that? And if it's really not going to accomplish what you want, why would we recommend that?
Yeah. I almost like just from, seeing from my vantage point, right? And I look at like your business there have been like significant business model shifts or like pivotal milestones that have happened. And for you, you think of it as your hires, hire fires, and build outs, right? And for me, I look at it as this shift in how we show up and position our brand, in which case we are perceived by a certain population a certain way. So one of those things for me, like I was just kind of thinking as you were talking, the first one was you shifted everything in your service menu from services and products to packages and programs. That
Mhm.
was one big thing. So it was like, you know what, all the complexities, and that kind of stemmed from, I think part of it too was these customized treatment plans and even patient flow and how everybody's interacting and moving through the practice. Whereas if we knew we could get a patient to come in and make that big commitment to the optimal result at the highest value, right? Then we could plan and staff and like, you know, have a patient flow in a more simplistic way. But what I saw was just we saw the numbers change immediately when you just you made that decision and told your team this is how we're going to start talking to patients and actually made that was the menu, right? Based
And
on conditions and outcomes versus, you know, the tool that you were going to use to achieve that.
right. So we're problem focused. So when people come in, we address what their concern is, not here's, you know, but from the beginning, I mean, I always did like package, like when I brought in like devices, it was always a series. And then I transitioned to our wellness the same way.
Yep.
It's a 3-month commitment that focuses on root cause, hormones, thyroid, weight loss. Like we don't just, here's your, you know, 4 weeks of semaglutide. Good luck. I mean, the first 12 weeks is really, and with hormones too, educating. Why are things happening? How can we help with the root cause? And that has created just really happy clients that refer. And honestly, I say no. I mean, I've learned too, just with messaging, when clients are, there's a certain client that will not fit. I mean, they're not going to be happy with how we do things. Like if they just want to come and pick up their medications and never do labs or anything, then I'm not the right place. They can go online and, you know, get it from somewhere online, because we care too much. Like I want to know what's going on and help them understand that. But that's also can be difficult because we are promoting wellness. And so that has been a shift too, where I've had to learn, you know, I only can help people that want to be helped when it comes to wellness. They're choosing to come here, they are paying for it. And I have so much greater satisfaction too. And when somebody actually wants to be helped, but the same as with skin, you know, there's no miracles. It's a journey. And that's where we, you know, setting up where we want to be with people throughout the journey. We now have a lot of patients that start out wellness that go into the skin or vice versa. And that's really, I love that, because then we're truly helping the entire person. Like they'll come in and then they start feeling better and they're like, you know, maybe I want to do laser hair, or can I meet with the RN to talk about skin? Absolutely. You know, that's what we're here for, to help you with whatever phase of the journey you're in. Mm-hmm. And that's where really I find greater joy when I started doing the wellness again, because I mean, I liked the aesthetic, but you know, after about a year, I'm like, okay, I've injected how many thousands of lips and Botox, and I'm just like, okay, I've mastered that. What's next, right? Like, and so I also made the decision, I'm no longer in the treatment room for aesthetics at all. And there was a shift. I'm done. And that happened about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah. And I wrote like too, as I was thinking, those inflection points for me were packages, programs, wellness, removing you, and then building your leadership team. Right. So I think like when you and I actually remember because you have family practice and OB background. So like this wellness thing was not new to you, but I remember you talking about the fulfillment that you got out of having a conversation with somebody about their health and about like their mental state and how they were feeling as a human being versus just the aesthetic stuff, and how you just felt so passionately like drawn to, this is really where I want to invest in and start to build more infrastructure around that. And that has really proven to be, you were kind of, it was like, I joked before it was popular, you know, a lot of people like now it's this is like the movement. And even last year, I thought last year was going to be the year of the wellness aesthetic integration, but now with regenerative, you know, we've got peptides, we've got functional, integrate, all these different aspects of wellness medicine coming into play. And it is this year, there's so many aesthetic providers trying to integrate wellness. Can you talk a little bit about the functionality of that and like how and when you decided to open and transition the skin clinic into, you know, how did the wellness fold in? And then what are some best practices in terms of how you've grown that side of the business?
Yeah. And so I think, that's why I didn't fit into the family practice mold. Leaving family practice was a really hard decision for me too. I worked with an amazing provider. He and I shared a practice. I mean, we had a closed practice. We were very, very, I truly learned from the best, and we worked well together. We did team-based care. We brought our RN with us into our office. And I felt like we were doing an amazing job taking care of patients, but he and I both were at a point where we were just done. And neither one of us wanted to leave the other person, because we're like, okay, we can't leave each other and be stuck with like this whole practice. And so he and I decided at the same time, we're going to go to urgent care together. And again, the most terrible, terrible decision I could have made. I was not meant to be an urgent care provider, because it was just in, out, assembly line. I would see things providers had missed, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And but he and I did not fit into family practice either. We would question, why are we doing this? Is this really the best for the patient? We were not against change. I would say we were the change agents within the Mayo Clinic organization. We truly were, but we were targeted for that. And, this did not happen. I mean, part of me coming into this was Mayo Clinic, when he left and went to Europe to travel with his children, called me in, and I was targeted and got fired. And I was going to quit being a nurse practitioner. And my husband's like, really? I think you're kind of good at what you do. But I was like, I'm done. I will never work for somebody and give so much of my heart and soul to another organization and be treated this way. And I was targeted totally again. And so that was a point where, okay, what do I do with my life? And that's when the skin clinic was born. And I look back, and what a blessing. I mean, 5 years later, I would have never thought I would have this life I have. And I'm truly happy, and I love what I do. But back to family practice, I always felt something was missing. I didn't really help people. I would just, give them a pill and say, we'll see you in 3 months, but good luck getting in 3 months, because it's actually about 6 months to get in. So if you have a problem, I hope you can get a hold of me, because even patients couldn't get a hold of me anymore. And we were really losing that personal touch. And so then when I started in the skin, and I really, really loved mental health. And so one of my plans was maybe to go back and get my postmaster's site in family. And that had always been kind of on my bucket list too. So when I got into skin, I realized how much mental health I was actually doing with, because women seek out feeling better about themselves for many reasons. It's not because they're vain. I mean, they're doing this for themselves. And so that's when I started to really see, oh my gosh, there's so much missing and what we can be doing for women. Hormones, as I was in my 40s, it's starting to experience hormonal changes, and thought, gosh, I really need to look into this, because women started asking me about it. It would come up in conversations, and I sought out training. The same time, I also learned about weight loss medications, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was doing them totally separate. And then one day I'm like, this is the key for women. We have to combine this, thyroid hormone, weight loss. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, this is what I offer. And women started, that grew and grew and grew. And have many, many, many hormone and weight loss clients now and absolutely love it, because I hear every day, you saved my marriage, you've changed my life. I've never felt this good. And so that's where I feel like the aesthetic and the wellness have come together so beautifully, because we can truly help women in all facets of their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really, I mean, I found my passion, and I know now, is to help make the 50s and 60s the best years of people's lives. But it all starts in the 30s and 40s, right? And then if we do that and really focus on that, they're going to have an amazing 70, 80-year-old,
Yeah.
where they're going to be healthy and can enjoy their significant other and travel and enjoy their grandkids. Because I would not see that in primary care.
Yeah. I think like for everybody here listening, like I think we all have this sort of like drive and passion. And then, there's also the thought of like, can my passion and my determination and commitment to fulfilling my purpose in this world translate into, multi-million dollar empire? And how does that happen? And in fact, one of the questions that came in for you was, holy bananas, mama, how did you get to $700,000 a month? And I think like I would love to just like blanket that question out there, because what I'm hearing from you is like just blinders on. Like one thing, I don't see you on the speaker circuit. I don't see you training for companies. I don't see you popping around. You're like head down in your business. You talk about hiring A players, putting policies in place. Like this is nothing to what like you would think, right? You're talking about your passion and just doing the things that you love. So practically, like how do you grow a business to that level doing those things?
Yeah, I mean, from early on, when I would ask, people would say, will you train? And I just said, you can't afford me, because I knew what my worth was early on. And I'm like, no, I know what I need to make in a day and what people are getting paid for training. To leave your business, I learned very quickly, especially when I had a team. I can't leave for a day and risk that until I really had it established. And I don't want to do, I mean, injectables never really was I mean, it's kind of, no, I don't want to, I just said, I don't want to train. And, I really feel like you just need to keep your head down, really. And I don't need to be, I don't need that like personal recognition. Where I find joy is when I can see how I've impacted my team's lives. I've taken them on 2 trips. Last year we went to Mexico, this year we went to Jamaica. And we did not, I mean, it was just a team bonding experience. I mean, it was not work. It was work in the fact of, I want them to get to know each other and be a team. Not let's, talk about our memberships and packages and things like that. And that is where I find the fulfillment. And really, I mean, when you grow too, it becomes a lot more, I mean, I have a lot more risk, right? When you get bigger and bring in more revenue, it doesn't mean, oh, I'm lining my pockets. I know I need to do it to grow and fulfill my mission and be able to expand and continue to hire. But with more growth comes more cost, more risk, with, employees. I have how many people that rely on me every single day. And I don't take that lightly at all. I mean, families. So not just my 10 employees, but their children, my family. I am, my husband now works with me, and really, I want them to come to a place where they feel that it's where they want to come, right? I never want it to be a job where, oh, I have to go there today and get it just so I can, get a paycheck. It's more than that. And I've really learned too, when I start hiring, what do I see in a really amazing employee and what don't I want? My practice and manager and I can identify that really quickly now, because she's been through the process of hiring with me and firing, and having staff quit, and that's okay. I've learned very quickly, nobody talks about that. Like people, I mean, there's a lot of like shame. And when employees leave, you feel, what did I do wrong? Why, what did I do? And then I realized, just like every patient is not for me, every employee is not for me either. And that's okay. I hold a very, very high standard. My family says every day, how can anybody work for you? Because, like I expect, I mean, and I tell them too, it's different. Like, my husband's like, no, I'll stay home. I don't know.
But listen, Heidi, like there is because we all know you here, and I think everybody in this room is like, what would Heidi do? Like like everybody wants a little bit of Heidi in them. And I think what that means is, you're a woman who is very confident and convicted. You know what you want, you know what you stand for, and you appear to not let those things, ruffle, like affect you and impact you. But the reality is, like, I laugh with you when you say your husband, like, can't believe people would work for you. Like, I'm sure my husband thinks the same thing, right? And I also know what on the flip side of that is a woman who she knows what she wants, and so she sets the expectation, she communicates the expectation, and then she loves, and like she's fiercely loyal to those people who are in agreement and alignment with those values, right? And so it's just simply setting that standard. And I think there has to be this level of self-worthiness, right? Like loving yourself enough to say, you know what? I deserve to have the best people around me. I deserve to bring a team of people like this. And you get to that point, and I've watched you, and I want to kind of transition, to a little bit of the Heidi piece of it, because I've watched you as a leader change into this woman who is just not going to put up with somebody coming in and impacting the joy and like the fulfillment and just like the what your team gets out of being a part of the skin clinic. It's like the skin clinic, it's just there's just a standard of excellence that you're protecting no matter what.
And I mean, I protect my staff, and that comes with clients too. We've set boundaries, where we have to respect our time. And, if somebody gets on the phone and yells, I have called patients and said, you're not allowed to come back here, because nobody deserves to be talked to that way. And that's okay. I feel like sometimes people have to be called out in their behavior, because they're also doing that to other places, but and I really support my team. If they feel like something's not right with a client or whatever, I will always have their back. And I know if you ask them, I have really high standards, but I will always defend them. And honestly, I would probably do anything. And I've had to learn. I mean, I have been taken advantage of by past employees because of that, but they are like family. I mean, we have apartments above, and two of my employees live in apartments. And because if they needed a place, I'm like, absolutely, I wanted to give them that, or help them in those, in all areas of their life, because I truly do feel very honored that they have chosen to come work with me. But that has been really, that does not happen overnight. And, I've been working with you, Kaylee, for 4 years, and things that we talk about now are very, very different than what we talked about 4 years ago. And even just, I think of like how I approach making decisions, looking at the future is very different, because I'm looking now at 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. When we're doing this build out, I'm thinking, okay, what is this building? Because someday, if my kids don't want to take over this business, I will sell my business, and I need to look at, okay, what am I creating here with the building, because and things like that. I'm thinking very, very differently. And we never know I mean, my husband has said to me, how do you do this? Let's just sell the business and move to Mexico. And I was like, wait, we got to let we have 2 more kids to graduate from high school.
Wait, we love negative 20 degrees. What are you talking about?
Why would we move? Right? I mean, we can ice fish, and our pipes freeze, and this is like the best place to live, right? I mean, I honestly hate the winter. I hate it more and more as I get older, and I think, why do we live here? But we do, and so we make the best of it. But that's where you know, in 5 years, things could be totally different. I don't know. But I always think now I'm thinking long-term, not just what should we do for tomorrow? I mean, part of me is because I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow some days. I mean, right? I'm like, things will just come.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that it's like, again, a different level of like, and two, just how you've grown. Cause I'm laughing to myself at like, we're actually future planning for, like, we're talking about an employee that's coming in 9 months. You know, like when we first started working together, it was like, who's going to fill that? Like, who's going to answer the phones right now, tomorrow, you know?
Right.
So it is a very different perspective, but it's also, one of those things where like you once you have a bit of a future vision, you know, you can start to trust yourself of today, right? It's the knowing of like, okay, I've survived. Like, one thing's for certain. I heard this quote the other day, like, I've survived 100% of my bad days, you know, that
Right.
where I thought I wouldn't. So like, you know that, right? So it's like, I can get through, I can show up and live in the now, and knowing that I've still pointed in a direction, you know, and it's just that nice kind of balance, I think, as you grow, as a more evolved leader, you know, of your organization. Um, so I kind of want to shift into, there's a few specific questions, but I want to make sure we get this part in, because there's sort of like the building of, you know, there's packages, programs, wellness, and then the removing you out of injecting, and like slowly kind of moving you out of being the primary provider, and now building this team, right? And so let's kind of talk about that transition. One question that's in the chat is, how long did it take you to build a team that supported you, knowing your office would be able to keep things running whether you were there or not? And I think that kind of brings us into this next iteration, which is the, you know, leaders building leaders, right? So talk about like what you're focused on now, and maybe through that, if you could answer that question.
Right. So I mean, ideally, I mean, in a year, I would love to really spend 1 or 2 days, you know, with clients and developing other people, because so I need to hire, we're planning now to hire, right, as when we move. And so I think of, what do I want to do? I do like the business part of it. And so that's where I don't think it was that hard for me to step out of the treatment room. But I also have 100% confidence in my team because I always thought, I mean, why, I would never, I mean, this is like, I have invested everything into my business. I would never trust somebody to take care of another patient that I did not trust. And I think that just is, you have to have that mindset when you hire them, that you have to learn to trust. And so, but that it's different, because now I have to learn to trust medically if I hire a nurse practitioner. Like, okay, how am I ever going to find another me? Well, then I realized that is silly, because I found that very quickly when I hired injectors, and they will learn from me. I will not be absent. I mean, someday I want to be able to leave for 3 months and, you know, and everything run. I mean, now when I leave for a week, things are great. I mean, I was gone over Christmas for a week, and then came back, and I said that Monday, because it was weird weeks because of holiday too. And I'm like, for as busy as we are, I said, Amanda, the day was amazing. I mean, I was in the treatment room all day, 9 to 6, because Mondays and Tuesdays, or maybe it was, I can't remember, I had been gone, and it went great. I was like, this is what I have been working so hard for, that I didn't have to put out a million fires plus see 30 patients that day or whatever I had. Plus, you know, when you're gone, you're usually answering messages and doing refills and things like that. And then I realized we have got a good thing going here, and I have to just trust that my team can do it. And they've proven it to me time and time again.
So how long, so to the specific question of how long, do you think it's a timeline, or do you think it's a mindset? Do you
It's a
think,
mindset.
okay,
You have to let go. I mean, and don't get me wrong, when we're gone, there's things where when I work, but it's different types of work I'm doing. I'm like doing things I like to do when I'm out of the office, where my mind can be productive, and like things that don't just happen during the day when you're in between patients, and my mindset is different. So I think it's a mindset. I don't think there's a time, because I guarantee you there's people who have been in business for 10 years that still don't have trust.
Mhm.
You know, that's where you have to just make that commitment and think, you know what, I I have to trust, right? I think of it when I had kids, you know, and I left them at daycare. You have to trust that they're in good hands, and that it doesn't come easy for everybody. And were there times in there's a direct correlation with my trust with the team, and were there people on my team keeping me up at night? That's a good gauge for me too. If they're keeping me up at night, there's something not right, right? You can't force somebody to fit into a team. You have to embrace it.
I love that as a litmus test. Are they keeping you up at night?
And I kind of, I've learned to gauge that too. Like, and then again, like, well, what is, okay, what's keeping me up? Because sometimes it's not them, it's the process I've created. Like,
Right.
okay, how now, okay, this isn't to them. Like, we have to relook at what's going on in the, you know, where when we make changes, now I think too, was this a direct result of something I decided? And we have to be okay with saying that was not a good choice. Let's reevaluate and change again. And because I think too, I have part of my role now is to how can I make their day easier, right? Like developing things that are working really well. And then it allows them to do what they're amazing at. I don't
Yeah,
want them to
I'm
do the
looking
little
at
things.
my Heidi, I was working on my keynote for all this year is let go to level up. And I was writing it this morning and I wrote this and it's almost exactly what you're saying. So how about instead of needing to be involved in everything, I reframe to I need to build a team so strong that I become irrelevant.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that that's if that's your goal and everything you think about is it does come back to the system, right? It comes back to my frustration is that this thing isn't happening as I expect it to happen. And so instead of getting upset about that at you know the people, how can I build a system that's strong enough that these people can execute on that system without needing to come to me, right?
Right.
And
And I
that's
learned
a
too.
different level of leadership.
Right. And I ask them, what is working, what's not? I need your help because I'm not in the treatment room anymore. They are my eyes and ears. So I might be the visionary and come up with, but I'm like, you tell me what worked with this, what didn't. And then we can, you know, troubleshoot together. And I want a team that wants to come to work and give me suggestions, and be thinking about like, how can this be a better place, and be comfortable expressing that too, because we will be stronger as a group by the decisions and actions of everybody. And I feel like I do have a team that is, they do care and they do help in that way of creating a change, because change is good. We have to continue to change and to be better, to level up.
Yeah, change is uncomfortable and it's necessary. And so we have to have people that are willing to change and grow with
Mhm.
us. You mentioned briefly Amanda. So Amanda is your practice manager. She's also part of our mentorship program in the academy here. How important is it to have a strong practice manager?
Oh, it's so important. And I mean, we still kind of laugh at some of the jobs she and I do. And I mean, yeah, we've been writing the job description, man. I mean, she's had it all. And it's so important because it's that person that can really not, I think of her as all things people. You know, she manages the people, the the clients, the team. And that allows me to take care of patients on the days when I'm taking care of patients and make decisions that need to be made without thinking of, you know, those other things. And I found somebody who her strengths are very different than mine. And that's good. Like I want her to, you really, when you find somebody that you trust and they complement, it's an amazing way to run a business, really. Because that's what her skills are, people by far. And her role has continued to change, but I don't know how I would ever do this without, but I also tell her the day she's gone, she's also, I know, doing a good job because it's still continued, like things are going really well when either of us are out. And so like now I'm like, I mean, when she's gonna be gone, I'm like, okay, thanks for the heads up, but it's not the same as what we used to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's been so much of like raising the standard for the team members that you're bringing in. Like I feel you're right. So like she's been able to, the better that people can do at their job, then, the less she has to step in. And again, that comes down to, I'm not going to accept somebody who's going to be, not an A plus on board team
And
member with
and
us.
and that's where we're
Yeah.
getting better at our hiring from day
Yeah.
one.
Yes, I love that. Okay, a question came in. What is one of your strongest business systems that has contributed to the growth of your business?
I think it's again having packages like wellness and aesthetics where you have been very intentional about the services you provide because you know the outcome. And then that, you offer that and then the client decides, okay, I'm all in or I'm not. I think that has not only grown the business, but created, like I said, much happier clients. The result outcomes are much better because somebody decided if we gave them 3 choices and they picked the cheapest one, well, those are the same people who think that they are going to get the biggest results for the least amount of money. And that's where I think it's really, this shouldn't be, but we're in a business where it's like, how cheap can I sell things? Let's get people in the door. And I learned very quickly that is not going to build a really good business. Cheap, you get what you pay for, right? And so
Well, and it's actually kind of marketing 101. Like we, it's about value perception. So, I mean, think about it. We walk into a department store and you see the most expensive, like La Mer is the classic of that, right? It's like a tiny thing of lotion that you're going to spend hundreds for. You just assume because it's in a smaller bottle and more expensive that it's better quality.
right.
Same thing with like if you go to Hermes and spend like it's pretty much the same leather. And so it's actually a very wise strategy, but it's scary, right? Like I remember you talking about billboards going up and, patients walking out because they didn't like what you were going to charge.
Right.
Yeah.
Or when I would say no, like I'm not doing a laser treatment on you when you won't do skincare because you're going to spend so much money on laser because you won't, and so those are the things where you have to be, we say no. I'm okay with that. Again, you never regret the patient you didn't treat, right? You regret the ones that become a problem. And yeah, I think it's just, you just need to know what are you wanting and who can you help the most is so important, but that's changed for me too over the
Mhm.
last few years.
What advice would you give to the Heidi that was just opening the skin clinic?
Set boundaries right away. You cannot make everybody happy, so learn that very quickly and be okay with that, right? Because I got walked, well, I can say this now, but I've learned by being walked all over. I mean, giving away things for free, friends taking advantage. Because I remember when I worked in primary care, I said to the physician, I always tell my kids the nicest people get farthest in life. And I'm like, they get shit on because when you don't say no, right? I'm like, because he and I would always say yes. Like, okay, yes, that patient came late, we'll see them. And then I had to learn that very quickly too, that when you create boundaries, you will create the business you want
Mm.
instead of letting everybody else come into your business and create what they want.
Such sage advice. I think
Yeah.
it's hard, especially you
It's
guys have reps walking in, you've got industry is just undeniably driving, price differential, like, I mean, margins, like there's just so much, like, how do you even stay above that game? It's just really, I think that's one thing when you have now you've got a strong business and like you have the means, the resources, but it's like when you're just building, it's such smart advice and so hard to trust yourself,
It,
you know?
and
Yeah.
I've learned that too. I tell
Yeah.
patients too, you need to trust the process. And
Yeah.
if you can't, maybe then we're not the right fit for you. Because
Yeah.
that's why there's multiple different personalities of providers. If they, you want people, whether it's your staff or your clients, you want them walking in the door because they want to be there. And sometimes I think we'd have clients that would hang out with us all day if we let them, but I like that. I mean, I want them to like coming to my clinic.
Yeah. No, I think it's just been a pleasure watching your growth, and finally, I think my last question for you is because, I strongly believe that the best way to grow a business is to grow its leader. And I know you've worked very hard on that. So what do you think has been the biggest shift for you as your interaction and relationship with the business in terms of the way that you lead?
Yeah, I think because we're trained as medical, everybody thinks, oh, I need to keep training on medical things. I need to learn all the things. And I'm like, we went to school for a long time to do that. We didn't go to school for business. You need to invest in yourself and personal growth, learn how to run a business. And if you aren't good at something, hire somebody. I learned very quickly too. You need a bookkeeper and all that because I had no business doing that. We're and never ever stop learning or growing, right? Because what I did 4 years ago is very different than the decisions I make today. And now I'm equipped to make those sometimes very hard decisions because I've invested in myself.
Yeah.
But again, women, they have so many excuses. I see it here too when people come in to do something for
I need
themselves.
to ask my husband.
I have to ask my husband, oh, I don't have time. I can't find time in my schedule to get there. And I'm like, okay, that's a you problem, not a me problem. You have to make the time and commit to it.
Mhm.
And again, that tells me you don't want to be here. So call me when you want to, you can't force that. And that's where, when I listen to podcasts now, I do listen to a lot of wellness because it's so interesting to me. And I feel like I want to continue learning that. But just as equally, I'm listening to self-development and business or books, just constantly trying to learn just, yeah, how to be a better leader. Because that is what is going to help continue to take my business to the next level. No, I don't need more classes on injecting or, it's how to run a business.
Yeah, I love that, and build the team. It's been really fun watching you build a self-led company, and I know we could continue this interview forever. So for all of those of you who are here today or listening to this that want to have access to Heidi's brain, she and her manager Amanda are going to be at Alt, and she'll be there for bombardment. And obviously, send me any questions so I can be sure to ask her while we're there as well. But I just want to thank you so much, Heidi, for just being a part of this community and like empowering and uplifting all the women here as well, like you do every day in your practice and with your team. I just appreciate having you in my life and getting to know you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye
Okay,
everyone.
thanks everyone.